Welcome back. I would entertain a motion for our discussion in closed session. Supervisor Milligan.
I make a motion that we
Oh, it's on.
postpone.
Talking to your mic.
I'd like to make a motion that we postpone indefinitely
Ordinance 8.
ordinance 8.
Is there a second? Supervisor Krebs, second.
Mr. Chairman, if that motion passes, ordinance 8 dies, and the town of Erin property is no longer under consideration for chapter 980 placement.
Any further discussion? We vote electronically. Let's voice vote on this. Did you want to speak first? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. County Executive Showman.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I would recommend to the county board and the Public Works Committee that you place at the earliest convenience possible an item on the agenda to discharge of this right of way. As much of it as we possibly can. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. I'll pause the meeting until they all. Good job. We'll move on. Our next item is 4B, Resolution 60. Resolution to amend the 2023 budget to fund the modified Washington County Anti-Crime Plan. Before we discuss, motion and a second. Supervisor Schultheis and Supervisor Mary. Oh. You're down one. Any discussion? Supervisor Newman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess I just want to speak on this because I had some concerns when this was presented to us a few weeks ago. When this first came out, there was a lot of concerns with staff and cutting service to fund this plan. Over the past week or so, I had many conversations with county staff, including the county board chair and the county executive. And I can say that I do feel better about most of these positions that are being proposed to be eliminated. But however, I feel many of those conversations had concerns. I guess their feelings that they presented that they were okay with the reduction in staff had to do with efficiencies that they've developed in their departments. And I think a lot of those had to do with advances in IT services. So that being said, I have concerns with two of the positions that are being presented on this plan. One obviously is the IT position. All of us rely on that position to run smoothly and operate. So I think that's a very important position. And the other is the land conservation and zoning manager. This is an important role in our county. And I'm concerned with the heavy workload that this current position has being shifted to the remaining staff without any monetary incentive may cause future issues in that department. Well, not to mention the water incentives that will be eliminated or services that will be eliminated that we just don't know yet. There was just a recent article in the Wisconsin Counties Association magazine that had to do with this department. So what are we going to sacrifice in that department is my concerns. So I wanted to speak to the correctional officer's position. Now, I don't want to be mistaken that I don't support the sheriff's department, because I absolutely support the sheriff's department. I talked to the sheriff himself and I understand their needs. I just have a concern with adding the 3 correctional officers positions and funding those positions while putting a burden on the departments that are losing positions. Now we're being asked to fund 3 additional positions in the correctional officers division, when we currently have, I don't know if it's 7 now, I know it was six vacancies that we cannot fill. So we're adding another 3 positions. We're locking up that funding, taking that funding away from other departments that, in my opinion, may not be everyone's opinion, but that are important roles within our county and our services we provide. So before I would suggest any type of amendment to this, I guess I'd like to hear of any other concerns that my fellow supervisors may have with this the presentation to eliminate these positions. Thank you.
Thank you. And as we discussed the other day, it's a given that the IT position is the first one that's coming back if the department head determines that that should happen. And as far as Paul Sebo's job, he's not going out the door tomorrow. He's still going to be here for a while. So I disagree with you. I'm a little bit more comfortable with that, but I understand your concerns and they're valuable concerns. So. You done?
I guess I'd like to hear from our fellow supervisor if they have any concerns similar to mine, or if I'm from a lone ranger here, so be it.
Okay. Supervisor Bossert.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. So we're talking with Judge Muehlbauer.
Oh, I thought I did.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. So I was talking with Judge Muehlbauer about the part-time court commissioner position. In prior conversations with him, there was actually discussion about going the other way with that position and creating a full-time position. So I wanted to hear his concerns. One concern that we both share is we want to make sure that if this doesn't work, that position's going to come back. I think that was the impression I got from our county executive at the last meeting. But I just want to get confirmation of that. And I know Josh is not here, but his chief of staff is here. So I don't know if she's willing to speak on his behalf
Or
towards that.
perhaps the clerk of courts.
understanding is it would be My understanding is we will revisit it in 18 months. So if the position was reinstated, it would be, I want to say January of 25 would be the idea.
Okay, if we're seeing that sooner, I'd like to see, if we're seeing problems sooner, I'd like to not be obligated to wait 18 months. So I just want to put that on the record. And then for the costing of that position, it says we're going to save $30,000. In talking to Judge Muehlbauer, the way that that position is funded is significantly through the payment of child support enforcement dollars from the state. And that's actually paid out by court time. So by time that they're actually in court. And with this reduction, we're going to be losing some of that court time. They regularly right now do delinquent child support cases twice a week. With this change, it's only going to be once a week. So I want to make sure that's factored into that $30,000 of savings. So I don't know who would be able to speak to that.
Aaron Dahl on Zoom.
Yes, hi, everyone. I'm sorry, could you rephrase that question, repeat that?
Okay, so my understanding, and I might be a little bit mixed up in this, so if I am, please correct me. But the way that that position's funded is in part by state child support enforcement dollars. And those dollars are tied to time in court. And with going to one full-time court commissioner instead of a full-time court commissioner and a part-time court commissioner, they're going to go from 2 days where they're hearing delinquent child support cases to only one. And that's going to be less time in court and thus less reimbursement from the state on that. Has that been factored into this $30,000 in savings?
It has, yes. So with every expenditure cut, we get less revenue by a fraction of that amount, right? And so, yes, that was factored in.
That was, okay, I wanted to confirm that. Thank you.
Sure.
Supervisor Kelling.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, most of this committee, this board has taken the tour of the jail. And we saw firsthand just how stretched thin the corrections officers are. So much so that they actually have to wait to be relieved in order to relieve themselves, which I think is really shouldn't be happening in our workforce. But I understand with security the way it is and being as tight as it is, safety first. So I really think it's of tantamount importance that we get our correction staff beefed up. I think that is the right thing to do for our employees. If anything, I would have probably had a little problem with the DARE program going away. But I understand that in this case, the having those extra officers probably is going to be a big help. Not just the corrections, but the other side of that. As far as the changes in the staff that we came up with to do this plan, I've been here 7 years. We've adjusted staff up and down through all departments over the years. I couldn't count how many times, many times. So I feel very comfortable and very confident that should we need to make some adjustments, we can respond relatively quickly. But I think these were prudent steps, and I really trust our department heads that if they say we can do it, I do believe we can do it. And should they be wrong, which they've never been wrong yet, I'm assuming that we can. I'm assuming that we can make the change and correct that. So I feel very comfortable with this plan, and I will definitely be supporting it. Thank you.
Supervisor Mary.
Thank you, Chair. Again, I kind of echoing what Supervisor Kelling had just said, I think the importance of providing the funding and the staffing for the sheriff's department are tantamount in this situation. We've got to have this additional manpower, resources, whatever you want to call it. I think it's vital to the county to do that. I commend all the staff members and all the different departments for the work they've done to go through and say, well, yeah, if we really tighten up, we can do this and we can do that and we can do this. That is not an easy task for anybody in a supervisory position, especially when you've got people's jobs on the line, or you just know you're not going to renew someone's position, not going to refill it, which means the workload has to be spread out to the other people. In that regard, I think we can just come back to our own county employees, many of whom will be at the event Friday night, to thank them for understanding. We understand why we're doing this. And I think everybody who has been involved with the pairing, so to speak, should be congratulating for being sincere about it, going in depth to find those funds to support the sheriff's department growth. And with that, I guess I would strongly encourage all of us to endorse this. Thank you.
Supervisor Krebs.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First off, I'll say we've only had this a few short weeks to sit about, pray about, ponder. I'm not comfortable with this plan yet. I'm not saying I won't become comfortable with this plan, but I'm not there yet. So just to start with, I probably won't be supporting this tonight. Couple comments and questions I do want to make is one of them, the crisis units of Washington County that the crisis teams. Can we get more information on what types of crises those will be serving and where they'll be serving, or which calls they'll be responding to?
Julie?
So right now, our ACS team responds to crises in the community that are under Chapter 51. So it's very statutorily guided. And they're essentially determining somebody's ability to safely remain in the community, whether they need to be hospitalized, whether they can be safety planned. We do not do any proactive crisis response. And there are certain situations within the community that we don't respond to, that law enforcement responds to, but there's no real intervention or aftercare. Some things like that could include domestic violence situations, family troubles, issues between youth and their parents. Those are not Chapter 51 or Chapter 55 crisis responses that we currently service. So what we've been seeing across the country in the response to the increase in mental health and substance use in many, many communities is this co-responder model that is more proactive response to needs in the community. What I can tell you is that, I mean, I don't know exactly 100% from point A to point B to point C how this will work, because this is something that's being developed across the country. We've been learning with other partners in the state and across the country of what this looks like, but I think it will be something that's developed through the implementation phase and how it exactly works and operates. And then we'll look to see if we can expand that into other communities. So it will be calls that the sheriff's department responds to, but I know that, you know, we've already had conversations with the chiefs of other jurisdictions who've said that they're interested in this once they see how it rolls out.
Thank you. That was a great segue. That was where I was getting at. We have our two cities within the county have a pretty sizable police force of their own too. And I was wondering if these teams will be in those municipalities, or if this is only sheriff's department calls, or if this is general calls throughout the county, because right now there's a call and there's a motion from several municipalities trying to request county sales tax dollars to be shared. When I think this is another great example of where we could start to partner up with other municipalities within our community and share the existing resources that are already overlapping and duplicating before we add more positions to this. And Josh or Marty, the sheriff, if you want to chime in, I'd appreciate it. But we're expecting to put 3 new deputies on just for this type of a team. When primarily the sheriff's department patrols and services the townships and the rural areas of the county. But now we're going to be in all the cities and villages too. So I think this is a great time for us with the call for sales tax sharing, for us to start to talk about these duplications of services and how we can start to share with these other departments better. So I would be, maybe we have to be the leader by putting these deputies on to start these teams. But I don't think the county has to bear the brunt of all this manpower, especially if they gain popularity and they're proven to be helpful. We should definitely be looking for partnerships within our own community. Also to relate to that, or to go from about the other partnerships with the police departments. I don't know, because I've been trying to do my research, but I haven't been able to track it down yet. But just based off of the numbers and the facts and the white papers that have been issued about this, we only have 1.5 officers per 1,000 residents in the county, but we have 12.3 police officers or police and sheriff deputies combined per 1,000 in the county. Are we over policed in the county the way it is? I have no idea. I haven't been able to figure those numbers out yet. But that's part of the reason why tonight I'm still not on board with this plan, because I don't know. I don't know, and I don't understand if that's the right level yet to have. I can see our Washington County needs, our sheriff's department needs, but I don't know how that segues into the needs of the county as a whole, as far as what public safety means. So with that, thank you.
Supervisor Hartwig, have you been trying to bring in?
Yes, I have. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess my biggest concern is I see only 2 deputies will be on the patrol, 2 extra. I know the DARE team, I thought I seen something about the DARE team. They were gonna join the patrol too, but there's only 2 of them. Is that correct? That's all they would hire extra?
The safety officer and the DARE are in addition to the 2 sheriff's deputies that are being added, correct?
So there'll be 4.
Yeah. Is that correct?
Thank you very much. I can probably clarify a couple of things. So we're reallocating that safety resource officer and the DARE officer. It was a very tough decision, by the way, but we reallocated them to our patrol division. So when we combine those 2 positions with the 2 potential new positions, the intent there is that we're hoping that we're able to staff first and second shift with a minimum staffing of 7 deputies, maybe not all the rotations, but a majority of the time. So those 4, it's a total of 4, 2 new positions, but 2 existing positions that we reallocated to patrol to be able to accomplish that.
Okay, well, the reason I asked is, was last fall, my son and I came across the accident on Highway 60. And we directed traffic for almost an hour, and I asked the officer, he said, thanks for helping out. I mean, it was busy. And the cars were in the middle of the road, and it took them 50 minutes to get there. But he said he was way on the north end by Allington, and everybody else was busy too. That's why I'm asking, is 2 going to be enough?
It'll help our minimum staffing quite a bit. I know it doesn't sound like a lot, but when it's like I said, it's really 4 positions that we're able to do that with to increase at least the staffing. 3rd shift, we're not doing much with.
You're going to put them in second and first
and second, where a majority of our call volume is. That's where we want to concentrate the manpower.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
And Mr. Chairman, I could address a couple of the supervisor's questions if you would like me to.
Go ahead.
So the question about over policing in Washington County, I'm not sure where you got your numbers from. The numbers that when we did it is that it's, if you combine all the municipalities, all the sheriff's office employees, and you divide that by the population and times it by 1,000, it's 2 officers per 1,000, or maybe 2.2 I don't remember. But that is lower when we compare ourselves to Ozaki County. It's a lower per thousand rate for the total policing than in Washington County.
Supervisor Bossert. Okay, go at it.
Otherwise, we're gonna revisit it later. I pulled my numbers from the white paper that county furnished for the referendum. And I added up each department's staffing ratio by their municipality. And that together as an aggregate added up to the 12.3 number, I believe.
Yeah, that math wouldn't work. You take the total sworn officers.
That's
and
what I mean. This is a hard thing besides using this white paper, which I'm not sure how it was put together. Trying to get a consensus across the county, how many officers, police officers, sheriff's deputies, all types of law enforcement officers we have, trying to get a full accounting of them even. I haven't been able to put all those numbers together yet for current numbers, much less like 1980 numbers, because that's the comparison that we keep checking our staffing levels to. So that's why I'm just not, I can't support it today because I just don't.
But I can
have
tell you that
clear
it's not
facts.
12 officers per thousand residents. That would be the national average, which we're way under, is 12 or 2.4 officers per thousand.
Sure. Thank you.
Supervisor Bossert.
So I don't want to make this a sales tax discussion, but I do want to agree with Supervisor Krebs that we do already share the sales tax. And this will become another way of doing that. So I want to thank Supervisor Krebs for bringing that up. Regarding the mental health benefits with the crises team, I think that is important. That is becoming more common in communities. We are seeing an uptick in mental health issues. And this is a proactive way to prevent those from leading to incidents, like a couple of the ones we've had recently where there's been loss of life because of mental health issues that went unaddressed. So I support that and I hope everybody will vote for this plan overall. Thank you.
After a lot of discussion the other night with Supervisor Newman, I think his points are valid, but I think at some point we have to take the first step and trust that our staff is going to do the right thing. We have excellent department heads, and I think we have to just trust them. And like Supervisor Kelling said, this board in the past has acted when we need to act. If we need to add a position somewhere, we'll do it. Let's not say we're not. So with that, any other discussion?
Chair Schleif, this is Supervisor Gelletz. May I speak, please?
Go on.
Thank you, fellow board members. Apologize, I was unable to be in person. I do want to make a comment in support of this resolution or chapter 60, sorry. I've always have stated publicly that I believe the county can and should support the crime package. But to clarify, I've always said that it should be borne within our operating budget. I believe the county in my tenure so far has done, and this is a testament to our department heads, done a great job bringing about efficiencies and better ways of working to the betterment of all, including just employee engagement and fulfillment in their roles. And as has been stated by a few other supervisors here, that continues. And by doing that, that means we can be more effective and efficient and work with less resources. And if we find ourselves in a situation as the county continues to grow and we need to add additional staff to meet necessary and statutory services, we'll do that. So I'm in full favor of reallocating some positions that have been addressed to fund the anti-crime. And I would appreciate your support as well.
Thank you. Supervisor Conrath.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, a couple of comments, first to Mr. Krebs, Supervisor Krebs's comment too about the concern of potentially, over policing. Yeah, the white paper did have those numbers, and that's what we have in front of us in print. But to just looking at, the jail and these crisis teams, yes, I believe that we need more, correction officers within the jail. And I am aware of the literature and things that are out there on these crisis teams and how effective that they are being, especially unfortunately, a lot of individuals who are in some, certain situations that turn into a crime situation. It's really a mental health issue. And a family member personally in the past was in the middle of one of those situations, and the MABUS and everything had to be called out on a family member of mine. And if there was a mental health unit that would have maybe responded first, I believe that the situation of fine at that evening, but things would have probably gone a lot more smoother. But yeah, just, being in healthcare too, I'm aware of many individuals too who have been hospitalized after certain situations. Also, where, whatever they've been shot or the police officer's been shot, where it was truly just a mental health issue. And, maybe if there was that combined effort, things would have ended up differently and really gotten we say bringing, the right treatment at the right time. But I did have, though, some other concerns too. Like we speak of the courts, we were just sharing how there's a backlog in the courts and then we're taken away. So I definitely want somehow like in writing or verbally, I think it was shared last time though, too, that concern of waiting that 18 months. I believe to Executive Showman, you had said that if it appears that we need to bring back that position before the 18 months, that, that we would. But I just want to make sure that that is followed. And I just raised some thoughts too. What about, we're cutting people. What about, are there other things that we can cut? Like I mentioned, like whatever, say this newsletter that we put out, or, the state puts out this crazy fancy newsletter, and I get comments every single month on it or every single quarter on it. And then I get comments too. I get emails, I get phone calls. It's quite interesting, but I'm in an extremely conservative area of the county. That why do we have these fancy newsletters at the state and county level? But so I was just wondering, are there other things that we can cut, or is that something maybe that we look at in the future too? Say if we have to bring back these court positions, then what else do we cut to be able to bring those back?
You have a comment?
Sure. A few things. One, certainly with regard to the court commissioner, it's absolutely something we'll continually look at. It won't just be, we'll wait till the 18th month and then take a look at it. It'll be on a monthly continual improvement process. And the clerk of courts has already started the process of doing various continuing improvement processes. So that'll happen a large amount. I think you heard, and I won't belabor it from last month, my 30-minute, hour and 15-minute presentation, I think was enough. But we had the whole cabinet and the entire team sit down and work together on this plan. So could we swap this out for that? Is there something else somewhere? Yes, I mean, the answer is always yes. But I feel very comfortable and confident in the plan as it's designed today. In regards specifically to the crisis response teams and the sheriff's department only works in the town, not in the cities and villages. Ask the drug task force, ask the SWAT team. That's all sheriff's department driven. This would be sheriff's department driven. We're in the cities constantly. And I mean, you live there, many of you drive through there. Sheriff's department is quite frequently working in our cities, and in particularly in mental health crises. I mean, yes, there are mental health crises in the town of Polk, but predominantly they're in the urbanized areas. And the social workers who work for the city of Hartford aren't showing up because there are none. They're coming from Washington County. Same thing with the deputies that respond, and most detectives in most urban areas. It's just part of being county government. It's what we do. Relative to the ratios, as the sheriff was alluding to, it is closer to, I actually think it was 2.1 deputies, or excuse me, patrol officers per 1,000. The sheriff was debating somewhere between 2.0 and 2.2. We gave that presentation about 1,400 times, I felt like. So somewhere in that range. Suffice it to say, Ozaukee County's numbers over time actually look like they've improved, but Ozaukee County hasn't grown at the pace that we've grown. So it's a little bit of an order of lies, damn lies, and statistics, just like when you take the average from each municipality and you add it up and you say it's 12. Well, and then you divide it by 137,000 people. Well, that number has actually already been divisible by the population in Hartford, which is why it's really 2.1. So to get to the point specifically, we're not anywhere near over policed in this county. As a matter of fact, I think the town halls, the whole process of the referendum, that's something we've not ever heard. In fact, it was always do more with less, as Supervisor Gallitz just said, which frankly is doing now less with less under this proposal. Sworn staff since the 1980s. There was actually an email floating around about this. I'm not sure if Supervisor Krebs, if you had specifically asked someone or where this came from, but that analysis was actually already started. Patrolmen back in 1980, there was 27. And the population of Washington County was 50% smaller. I think it was 80,000 people, roughly. I've given this presentation 1,400 times. You'd think I'd remember these things. So the population was 50% smaller at the time, 27 patrolmen. Today we have 53 deputies, and there's about 137,000 people. So I don't know, you do the math. I didn't do it quick. I just went and found the spreadsheet. But suffice it to say, again, we have grown. There's no doubt. I think if you look at all the different, when you add staff, you also have to add management eventually. All of that has happened too. As the sheriff used to say on the stump at the town hall meetings, I'm not saying we haven't added staff. We have added staff. It was patrol minimums that were the issue, which is why you get to the 4 new officers on patrol, even though you're pulling 2 from somewhere else. In this case, DARE and the school resource program. Finally, with regard to corrections, and I want to thank Supervisor Newman. He reached out ahead of time and we had a very productive, I think, conversation about how that works. And this is something that came out at town hall meetings. I know some of you attended 1 or 2, but the proposing 3 new positions when we have 6 existing vacancies being a concern. Throughout the town hall process, throughout the last budget process, we knew that pay and corrections is a problem. It's a problem not just here in Washington County, it's in every county in Wisconsin. And it's a problem even at the state level, so much so that Representative Bourne has once again, probably for the 3rd or 4th time, proposed legislation that would push corrections officers into a protected class, which allows them to have a little bit better retirement situation, including being able to retire early. Quite frankly, I personally think that would be a travesty if that were to happen. It would create a massive problem for us very fast. But that aside, this is an issue that everyone's facing. And so we have talked in recent months in particular about making adjustments to compensation aside from whether or not we add 3 people. We know we've got to fill the positions. It's a matter of when. The final thing I'll say is in regard to why the framework of this plan looks the way it looks. For example, there's 3 positions that are fully budgeted for all of 2023, but we're almost all the way through 2 months of 2023. The way that property tax levies work is you get the money or you don't get the money. And once expenses are assigned to it, whether it's this year or next year or the following year, future years follow that assignment. And so the minute I commit $120,000 to a new patrol officer, now it's committed next year as well. So, I mean, we can play all kinds of games with how budgets work. I mean, we've got accountants or budget folks on the phone and accountants in our space. But being the most transparent possible would dictate that you'd say, we're funding it now. We'll general fund transfer for the positions that are currently here until those are vacated. But once they end, it's I think only the right thing to do to tell people it's going to be gone and that money is going to be shifted. And then it's one decision for this body, not 15 decisions that happen over the course of the next 18 months or something like that. So hopefully that addressed all the questions that I heard. Sorry, I didn't step in earlier. I was chatting with the folks from Aaron. If you have any other questions, I'm happy to answer those. Thank you, Ms.
Supervisor Conrath.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to finish some thoughts. I appreciate that. I'm just wondering too, like doing more with less overtime. Do we have issues with overtime, or will this go into overtime costs, or do these, the other positions not really, they're salary based and there is no overtime? Like my role, I, worked 10 hours last night, but.
Sure. Yeah. So I can speak to like the budget function of it. I'll let the sheriff, if need be, speak to the mechanics. But budgetarily speaking, we didn't discuss using some overtime and shifting it over to full-time positions. And the reason I never brought it up, I never even talked about it, was because in the back of my head, those are dollars that we can talk about using for pay increases and corrections. That's the big area that I see with overtime. In terms of patrol officers, I don't believe there's an issue there with overtime, but I defer to the sheriff in regards to both of those positions and the mechanics of them, if you feel the need.
Yeah.
So the county executive is 100% correct. Most of our overtime that we're filling shifts and slots is in our corrections division that we constantly have vacancies over there. We're filling the overtime that's generated on the road, and there is some there, but a lot of that is call initiated when they're holding over for calls and not so much filling in open shifts.
Thank you. I have just one more comment too, regarding these. We all have concerns about the openings in the jail and then adding 3 more. My hope is that maybe by adding 3 additional positions, that'll help people say, hey, do you know what? I will be able to have a bathroom break. I will be able to have more support that maybe that will actually, encourage people to apply and help fill those positions.
And I
girl
forgot
can
to,
dream.
I'm sorry if I interrupted you. If I forgot to address the newsletter, you mentioned it and went on about it. I think the important thing to know about the newsletter, and we talked about pulling the newsletter out, but there's 2 important factors as to why we didn't. First, it was a county board initiative back in 2013 and 14, which rolled over into 2016 and 17. First under County Board Chairman Tenney's and then under County Board Chairman Gundrum. And we finally just started it just a couple of years ago. So that was one. The second and maybe more important reason, when everything that we just experienced in the last 15 minutes before this discussion with folks from the town of Erin, they all knew who I was and how to get a hold of me. And a lot of feedback about that newsletter was their direct portal to the county executive's office. And I asked staff to kind of run the numbers on that because not only do I think the newsletter is important, but the 5% reduction in the county executive's office, although it looks like a small number, it's a big deal. It's a part-time position, which frees up time for the executive assistant. And I bring all that up because when we had the 980 case, especially early on with the public hearing, my office had over 600 contacts, emails, phone calls, predominantly phone calls. And our director of communications fielded most of those because our executive assistant was out. So the newsletter is doing exactly what the county board back in 2013 thought it would do. It's driving folks to exactly where they need to go. And I think the county board back in 2019 that decided to go to county executive, that's also doing what they thought it would do. Because I can tell you when I was county administrator, if we would have had an issue like 980, those people would have been frustrated to the tilt trying to figure out which one of the 26 to call. And I know that because those of you who were here during County Highway W or the reliever route, that's exactly what happened. They were totally frustrated because there was 26 people they were trying to contact and no one had power to do anything by themselves. So it's absolutely working. And for those two reasons, we didn't even contemplate removing it.
Would anybody else like to speak to resolution 60? Supervisor Newman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess since I started this off, I wanted to follow up. I appreciate all the discussion and the opinions, and I appreciate the sheriff's efforts and Josh's efforts to revisit the recruitment process or the hiring process or the compensation for these correctional officers. I still have concerns of creating new positions, eliminating positions we currently have to create new positions that we can't fill. I mean, with everything I've heard tonight, I've decided that I will support the resolution, but I do have them concerns, and I think in the future, we need to have a follow-up report either from the sheriff or the county executive on how our recruitment and our positions are being filled. So, thank you.
Thank you. Shall we vote electronically? Tell me when you have all the votes. Oh, I'm sorry. There. You have the votes from remote?
Chair Supervisor Gallup submitted.
Yes. Are you voting yes?
Yes. Aye, affirmative.
It passes 20-1. We'll move on to resolution 61. You're presenting.
Do you want a motion in a second?
Oh, motion and a second, please. Supervisor Mary, Supervisor Toma. Any discussion?
I can answer any questions that you may have, or our Register of Deeds, Sharon Martin, is here, and our County Treasurer, Scott Hankey, is also here.
Supervisor Schwab. Let me turn your microphone on.
Thank you.
Okay.
Just one quick question. I didn't see that early voting was covered on Fridays in the information packet. Has there been thought given to how we'll handle that?
Are you talking about early voting that's handled at the local municipal level? Or are you referring to certain deadlines that were required to stay open for filing?
Thank you for that correction. I was thinking the municipal, that we don't do at this level. Thanks.
There will be times, I think it is important to note that per state statute, my office is required to be open on Fridays for filing deadlines for candidacy paperwork. In addition, even historically, we were required to be open until 5 for certain filing deadlines, when now currently we are only open until 4:30. We are well aware of those requirements, and we will make sure that we are meeting all state required opening timelines.
Thank you for the clarification.
Anyone else wish to speak? Seeing none, we'll vote on this electronically. You have the two remotes. Supervisor Gallots,
Yes, I submitted.
Supervisor Smisek is not. I believe Supervisor Smisek is not with us anymore. Supervisor Smisek, are you with us?
I am still here. I have mine submitted as well.
Thank you. Vote passes unanimously. We'll move on to resolution 62. Requesting the state review. This is advisory for revising the entry level compensation for assistant district attorneys. Any questions on that? It's pretty self-explanatory, I think. Oh, I need a motion in a second. Supervisor Bossert, Supervisor Baspalik. Any comments? There being none, we'll vote electronically. Supervisor Gallots and Supervisor Smichek.
I submitted.
I submitted as well.
You're not coming through on text, so just say aye if you agree.
I
Thank you. It passes unanimously. Resolution 63, requesting the state review and revise the compensation rate for public defenders. Motion by Supervisor Conrath, second by Supervisor Hartrig. Any comments? There being none, we'll vote electronically.
Chair Supervisor Gallots, aye.
Supervisor Samisek, aye.
Thank you. It passes unanimously. We'll take a 5-minute break for the bathrooms. Run. We'll do roll call vote. Aye. Okay, we have any of the public here anymore? That's a slam.